Today, I want to share with you my Draw Steel Adventure tools. This is a tool I created in Excel to help you create your Draw Steel encounters, your negotiations, your montages, and more. You might be familiar already with my adventure, encounter, and monster design tools that I make available for Dungeons & Dragons. Both that tool and this tool are similar in nature, and they're both available to folks who back my Patreon. Now, you can just back my Patreon for 1 month. I won't tell anybody. Drop in, grab the tool, and go. That's okay. It still helps me with my attempts to slowly transition to more design work. You will help support all of my efforts here for doing that, even if it's just for a month. I'm still appreciative for that. But yes, this is a tool for Patreon subscribers. And so the primary reason for this video is both, well, to help folks who have access know how to use it. And should you want to become a member of the Patreon, then you can use this tool and see everything you can do with it. The point of this tool, as I said, is to help you design encounters more easily, right? I enjoy reading the Draw Steel book. It walks through in a variety of ways how you can make encounters, both a quick format and a more detailed encounter construction mechanism. But there are a number of steps that you have to go through, right? Selecting the monsters to figure out the math of it, seeing whether it's balanced for the number of players you have, and I wanted to automate that. I'm in part doing this because, cool news, I am the managing director for the Draw Steel Crack the Sun project. You can go to BackerKit right now, and maybe by the time you watch this, you can actually back it. As of my recording, it's just a few days until it goes live. But you can follow the project or back it depending on your feelings about that and what time it is when this has come out. But that is a really, really cool project. And one of the things I wanted to do as part of managing that project was to really understand encounter design. And so I thought, what better way to do that than to actually create a tool that does it for you? The Draw Steel RPG has an amazing, really cool license that you can use to create your own creations, adventures, monsters, treasure, all of that. And I used it to create this tool. It's really neat. It's a far friendlier license for your creations through Draw Steel than it is for almost any other RPG out there, other than things that are just completely available. But it's really almost everything except the art is available for your creations, which is really neat. And there are some amazing things that are out there already. So I will eventually provide this probably in some form in that way. But for right now, it is Patreon only. And it will be while I get feedback from everybody out there on what they're liking about the tool and what features they want to see added to it. Also, while this is about Draw Steel, I like a lot of games. And I am always adding improvements to my adventure design tools for D&D, and I'm thinking about maybe making one for Daggerheart. So if you play Daggerheart, give me some feedback here or on the Patreon, on the Discord about what kind of things you would want in a Daggerheart creation tool as I maybe start playing around with that. We'll see what kind of time I have where and how many people are interested. But okay, let's get to the tool and what it does. I'm going to walk you through a tour and show you how to use the various parts of it. So I'm going to start by giving you a high-level overview of what the tool does, the different sections of it. So first, you've got this welcome screen or info worksheet. Worksheets are the little tabs along the bottom. So in case you've never used Excel. By the way, I have not tried this tool in Google Chrome, but if you do try it in Google Chrome or some other tool and it works, let me know. I know that this will be compatible with older versions of Excel because mine is pretty old. You see here the license information, the copyright information, and then you get some information on using the tool. I'm going to go over it, so I won't read this out to you. And then you're going to see at the bottom a series of color-coded tabs or worksheets. And this includes, if you go to combat, you will see the encounter creator, and you will see some general information up at the very top, some informative things that I like to think about when I'm writing of what skills are like, or tests, and then different encounters. And so we'll see an encounter block here, and then you can go to encounter 2, and there are all of 8 encounters in this sheet, which is about half of what you need to level. So you would probably have 2 of these, but I find that generally I'm not having all 16 victories that you use in Draw Steel at once. So this is the first 8, And it makes sense. Usually you won't even have 8 all at once, but up to 8 can be done in one worksheet. You can always right click on the worksheet, copy, and make another copy for your next part of your adventure. But I thought 8 was a manageable number to have in one worksheet, and you get a summary up top of everything that happens in the 8 encounters. And I'll go into a more depth review in a bit, but I just want to give you an overview of what's going on. So it's tracking how hard the challenges are, the kinds of monsters that you've populated, and dynamic terrain. Via drop downs, it automatically calculates your encounter values based on the monsters that you select and how many of them there are. It'll note whether there are minions. It will do a review of various things to say if you have too many terrain elements, or if your monsters are too high a level, or a number of other checks that are in the rules for draw steal encounter creation. So these are not my own rules. These are actually the book's rules. Also guidance on things like if you want to create a star of the show monster that'll really show off how cool it is, how to do that. And then if I page a little over to the side or scroll over to the side, you can see that there are places to capture story elements, whether your wealth or renown increase, the various consumables, trinkets, leveled treasure, followers, titles, and renown you give, and then a few extra encounter notes. Just places to hold that information. And when you look at these sheets, when you see green, that is a place that you can safely overwrite. There's no math being calculated here. You can add the information, right? So you add the level of all the characters in your party. Then in white, you will see the calculations come out, and gray are just sort of headers. So that you'll see throughout this place where, the green part is what you'll fill out. The rest is what it does for you, which is kind of cool. So that is the combat high-level overview. We'll come back to this for more detail. And then you have a negotiation worksheet. Here you get to kind of name what your negotiation is. You'll see the starting attitude and interest and patience, which you can then overwrite to declare your final version. You can track all of the motivations, your NPC languages, your pitfalls, and then what the final response and offers will be, depending on what interest level they'll end up at in the encounter, which is very important for the design of a negotiation. For montages, you will again get to name what you want your montage to be. There are, by the way, instructions that are available for all these little red pieces to let you know. You'll fill out the levels that you have for your various heroes, so we know what the difficulty can be like. We get a reminder here of various difficulties for montage tests based on the players. And then we can fill out what our challenges will be, which round they'll be in. Generally, a montage has 2 rounds to it. So your challenge might be like moving rocks, or clearing the burning rubble, or scaling the cliff, whatever it might be. And you can write those down and which round they'll play in. It could be round 1, could be round 2. The difficulty that you're going to go with based on the information you've seen here. Max number of times you can try. So usually a challenge can be tried once, but you can have it specified that it can be tried multiple times. And then notes for whether the challenge is triggered or part of an event, because we might say that if the characters do X, then this becomes an available option for a montage challenge. We then have the outcomes right and what happens when it's a total success, partial success, or failure, victories that are granted, and rewards. I also have a worksheet with rules in it. This gives us common things we want to look up, like what are the various skills in the different groups, what are test difficulty outcomes, the characteristics in the game, the different lore skills that we have, the reactive tests, common situations, and what characteristics are used for that, what it's like to assist a test or do a group test, the different languages that exist, and then information that's used when you're running negotiations and montages are over here. So this is the general information on test difficulty for each number of heroes, adjustments you make based on languages for negotiations, just common things that I like to remember as a director or GM when I am creating an adventure or when I'm running a game. So I've begun adding those here. I will be adding more over time to capture more of those rules that are useful for this type of situation. I then have a few worksheets that are just useful to look things up. So if I'm going to write an encounter and I need monsters that are bugbears, I can go to this category and choose just the bugbears. Or I can review the different types and see what's useful and go, what I really want is a bunch of undead, and then filter down to just undead, or select a couple of different categories based on what the game provides. Similarly, you might be looking for a particular level or encounter value. You might be looking for a particular organization, whether they're elite or hordes or leaders, or their role, like you need an ambusher for this encounter and you need it to be a particular level. That's where you can set these toggles to filter on what you like. Similarly, there's a worksheet capturing all of the available terrain in the game, and this also is something you can filter. So if you need a fortification of a certain level, you can select that by filtering on these tabs. That I think is hopefully pretty useful to you. That's a good high-level overview of what the tool does. Let's now go a little more carefully into the combat section and how to populate. The first worksheet encounter is actually populated already for you. In fact, I think they all have some data in them just so that you can see that it works. And the first thing we're going to do is set the level of our heroes. So if, they are all 5th level, then we would go in and set these as level 5 heroes. But maybe we have a mix, right? Maybe some are 4th level and one is 3rd and, this one is 6th, whatever it might be. It'll calculate the average and it'll show us here the number of heroes. We have 5 heroes. We have an average hero level of 5. We could decide whether there are any starting victories that they're bringing over to this fight from a previous one. And it will tell us what echelon of play they are based on the average hero level. That will all impact the encounters we design. Your heroes become higher level than what would have been a high challenge now isn't, right? So you can see here that some of these were much harder encounters when they were level 3. So let's go back to that level 3, see something that's a little more balanced. So if I have level 3 heroes, or at least a majority that are level 3, then we will see how they, and you see how those encounter difficulties changed here. So here, we'll just set them all to being level 3 heroes. And so we have 5 heroes, levels 3, and echelon 1. And then we see for the 8 encounters currently how they're set up. But let's dive into an encounter and see how we do that. So you can name your encounter. So I can just say, okay, this is going to be the battle on the bridge. And it's my first encounter. I can choose what the objectives are. A lot of things are populated via drop-down lists using the official rules. So maybe they're actually trying to destroy the bridge. So I could say it's destroy the thing. You can also write your own value here. And it's going to calculate the encounter strength based on the heroes, the number of heroes, the level, the current victories they have. All this factors into creating this. And it gives us some recommendations per the draw steal rules. What is the recommended max creature level? 5. For a solo, level 4. And so we know that. We know we shouldn't go higher than a level 5 creature. This area displays your current results for the encounter that you've created in terms of whether it's trivial, easy, standard, hard, or extreme. And the game has all kinds of rules based on what you are choosing to do, different recommendations there. Currently with these monsters that are populated here, it is in the standard range. So this is highlight, and you can see it written out here, standard encounter, total EV 58. So that's between that 50 and 60 range, which is why this is lit up. If I were to make any change, like I say, there's 0 here, you can see I took a bunch of important leader away, which has a higher value. So it became a trivial encounter. It now has a total EV of 34. So that lets us impact things, right? If we throw in an Eric's, which is a solo, it goes to hard. So you can see very quickly, it reacts immediately when you make a change and choose a monster. How do we choose a monster? We go to any particular row, and we go into our down arrow and choose the particular monster we want. If I want a Chimera, that is a level 3 solo. So if I put one in there, this makes it extreme difficulty. But I can change some of what I'm doing here, right? I've got, I could take one set of minions out, or in fact, I could leave 2 sets of minions here and take away these hordes. And I could remove my terrain that I have here. And now we have just a Chimera plus a couple of these Ungulato Cleaver minions, and that is a hard encounter. So if I wanted this thrilling, hard battle on the bridge, and I want a Chimera in my encounter, this is a way that I could have the Chimera as a solo centerpiece and a few minions there, right? All of this is auto-populated, right? When I chose the Chimera, it showed that it's level 3, that it's a solo, what its encounter value is, and I only had 1. But if I had put 2, it would do the math and show 120, shows the number of creatures and whether there are any minions. This is useful because there are some minion calculations that'll take place. I also have down here the dynamic terrain that I can choose. And again, these are drop downs. So I could say, maybe I want to have a catapult on the bridge. Would that be rough? Yeah, it's level 3. So probably not for first level characters. But if Battle on the Bridge was for higher level characters, I could totally choose an artillery siege engine type thing, a catapult, and use it. But maybe it's a dart trap. That's level 1. And if I add that, that still can be within that hard level. So for some reason, if there's a dart trap on the bridge, doesn't really make sense, but you can see how that works. Everything is added up here, so we can see we have 9 creatures, 8 of them are minions. The total encounter value of creatures versus terrain, and adding it together here, which is also reflected in these areas. I hope that all makes sense from what you're seeing on the screen. And so you can see, again, the number of creatures, the type of creature, their level, organization, encounter value, and then the summary is here with both the terrain and the creatures all showing up. We also can enter the number of victories granted for this, but we get a recommendation. So in this case, because it's a hard battle, the recommendation is to grant 2 victories. I'm currently granting 1. That's my choice I can make. So that would be a total of 1 because I didn't have any to begin with. But if I did start with a starting victory, then you see it goes there to 2. I'm going to undo that. All right, and then respites. Currently, we do not need a respite based on this recommendation here. But if we did, it would tell us, and then we could run that. Respites are going to be based on the number of victories we choose, so it would add up. So let's say I go with 2 victories granted because this is in fact a very hard fight or a hard fight, and that will over time add towards the respite recommendations. Now, let me show you the checks that take place. This block down below runs a number of checks on your recommendations that are in the encounter design section of the heroes or in the monsters book. And so you can see it looks at whether the number of creatures are outside the range of no more than 8 per hero, but we're okay there. We only have 9 creatures total. If the number of creatures is greater than 3 times per hero, half should be minions. If, however, we had an incredible amount, like 10 of these, now it's going to say that our number of creatures is more than 8 per hero, because we have 48 total creatures. But it's okay that they're minions, right? The minion part is okay. They're just too many per the recommendations. So it will do a check, and I think in this case what it's expecting is that it has at least 1 minion. So you see when I do that, it says, hey, you have more than 3 per hero. Half should be minion. They aren't, so it prints this. So also, if it does a check to say, if you use a minion group, and a minion, when you choose a 1 for a minion, this is 4 in the game. So if you're choosing a single set of 4, the recommendation is at least 2 sets of minions. So if I do 2, that changes down here to say okay, because it's using 2 or more sets of minions. And same thing, if it's 3, it's fine. But if it's 1, it'll give me that error. Now, you can still go with this, right? Even though we've exceeded the recommendations of the game, you may as director say, nope, I want to do that. I know these reasons why it'll be fun and it'll be great. And so that's okay. You can do that. Other checks that it runs is no more than 6 creature stat blocks. So if I have a bunch of different stat blocks, it will error out and say, or it'll give you a comment here, hey, you're exceeding this. If you have more than 2 terrain elements, so if I do a 3 here, right, it'll say, hey, the recommendation is no more than 1 to 2 terrain elements for this difficulty. And it'll be, you want it to keep it to 3 or less when you are at a hard or extreme level, and it checks for that as well. And then the last thing is the level of the terrain should be less than the hero level or equal to. And so if you were to choose something that is a very high level, maybe this guy, no, what level is that? That is only level 2. That sounds tough. Iron Dragon, yeah. So this is a level 4, so the terrain is higher than hero level. So those are the kinds of cool checks that the system is doing to try to help you. The last thing it does here, star of the show encounter value. Here it says, this is if you want a monster that feels like the star of the show, right? Feels exciting. It is something that's going to last in the encounter, take a pounding, keep on existing. Then it needs to be pretty strong relative to the encounter creation mix. So here it tells us that the encounter value for a star of the show should be between 20 to 27 encounter value. So you can see like that Chimera was an encounter value of 60. That's very tough. But something like the Eryx is a little closer to what will work there well. And it recommends that we use a hard encounter and then a leader or solo with this kind of an encounter value. So this is all based on the math of the game, and it's helpful for you to design to say, okay, you know, what kind of monster would I want to put into the game to be lasting and feel like, yeah, this is the cool thing that the players are watching. So this is just one encounter, right? We've got this one encounter, the battle on the bridge. And then I can go to my second encounter and do the same thing, right? I can choose to have like Bugbear Snare and Angolotl Needlers. And so I can come up with these different creatures here. It'll again run checks for this particular encounter. And depending on the number of victories that I'm granted, it'll keep that new total of the numbers there. It now says, hey, I recommend you grant a respite. And so you could say, okay, yep, after this, I'm going to grant a respite. And it tracks your total respites. And this will all be visible up here, right? The number of respites that we track, when we track them, how all of that gives us in this nice summary up here. So that's the way it goes for all of these different encounters. You will choose your monsters, choose the terrain. It'll give you the math of it, show you what your challenge level is, and you can have up to 8 of those encounters. For each of the encounters, you can also be tracking over to the side the wealth that you provide. If there is a wealth increase, and I write what the recommendations are about every other hero level. This doesn't happen very often. Renown, basically every one hero level. The consumables that are available, and I show you again those recommendations in these little information boxes that pop up when you mouse over. And so you can decide what kind of treasures you're granting and keep track of it here. I may later, as I did with the D&D tool, have a way to sort of summarizing everything you've given. We'll see. I may add that there to sort of sum it all up in some way. But each of the encounters has this, so you can at a glance see what you're awarding, how you're rewarding your players game after game. Cool. So that is combat encounters. I hope that makes sense. Let's take a quick look at negotiations. This and Montage are fairly simple. So when you're creating a negotiation, you want to say, who are you talking to, right? So is it, the bandit king or something like that? Then you can add that. You can choose what your starting attitude is based on a drop-down. So are they hostile, suspicious, neutral, friendly, trusting? And that choice, which is described here, that drives our starting interest and patience. That is a default recommended level. When you are then creating the encounter, you can decide to override that and say, I'm going to actually go with them being a little more interested, higher starting interest, pretty good for them, and I'll still keep my patience of 3. And then we can fill out the rest of our values, right? So whether there is what their impression value is, which will be used to track renown. So maybe they have a pretty high impression value. We can fill out their characteristics here. We can fill out the impression value that we expect from the PCs. Then your NPC languages. These are languages that the primary languages the NPC speaks, where if the PCs or heroes match that, they will get that hero that speaks that language will get a benefit to it. It is, I think, an increase in patience. Yeah, so it give you a bonus to that starting patience value if at least one speaks, and if 3 or more, then it's even better. Once you've detailed all these starting values, now you can fill out your motivations. Usually we have 2. You can have more, and this again is done from a drop-down list, so you can decide whether it's a peace and discovery are the motivations. And what is encouraged, and you can see this in the encounters and the published adventures, you want to describe how this particularly applies. Like, yeah, peace is the motivation. How does that represent? Like maybe it's they want to see these 2 warring groups that are along this border come together and no longer fight one another, right? And so if you, the players, are trying to, the heroes are trying to infiltrate one of them, well, that might upset peace, right? But if you can prove that peace actually at the end of it will be stronger, well, then that could motivate them, right? So discovery is the other. So if you're going to find something that helps them learn new things about the world, right, that would be interesting. Or you're going to provide them with alchemical secrets, well, that could increase their motivation. Pitfalls usually have 2, but you can have more. So maybe if you mention something like, we'll pay you, right, and greed as a pitfall, then it will fail as part of negotiations. Again, you get to describe how that will play out in the actual encounter and the negotiation. And then at the end, what the response and offers will be. Because when this concludes, we'll have an end interest level. And that will drive whether the NPC is going to say, no, and I'm going to try to harm you later. Nope, sorry, I'm not negotiating. I'm not going to give you what you want. Or no, but I'll give you something different or lesser. Yes, but, yes, or yes, and all of those options. And so it's good when you're designing a negotiation encounter to think through these and what is likely to come of that, right? If you get a yes result, cool. And here's what the heroes are probably asking for, right? Safe passage through the land, or to use the teleporter in their special teleportation chamber, right? Something like that. So you can go through this and fill out what is likely to happen here. Of course, during play, there'll probably be some changes, but you'll have a leg up by having detailed this all out the way that the adventures do. So for montages, here you will begin by placing the number of heroes you have and their levels. Really, it's the number of heroes that is the biggest important factor. So if I have a 6th character that appears here, this will change the success limit and failure limit. Similarly, if I have fewer, you can see that will change as well. So based on the number of characters that you have in your party, that will drive these values that you use here, and also the difficulty. So whether it's moderate or hard, that will change this up. So this becomes your final value down here. And you can write what your montage is, traverse the jungle, something like that. And then you describe what the scenes are that you expect to have, the different challenges that you have, right? You enter the jungle and there is, dense, confusing, maze-like forest or impenetrable vines. Maybe there are stinging creature insects, huge giant bugs that swarm around. There is quicksand, so you could write all these down. And when you do so, you decide whether they're happening in round 1 or round 2, or you could say, all for all of them. This is just for you to track that. The difficulty that you want to use, right, is an easy, moderate, or hard. This is how difficult that test will be. And whether you want to have a maximum amount of times you can do it. Like maybe the default is usually 1, but maybe you want to say, you can try to break through the thick, impenetrable vines twice, once in each round. We could also have events, like maybe we want to say that, this particular challenge, the second challenge that we're going to design, you can only pass the quicksand after you've gotten through the vines. To sort of create more of a storytelling mechanism, you could have that as a trigger. So we keep that on our notes and know, oh yeah, now they've crushed the vines, I can describe that, by the way, you see pools of quicksand here. Or you've heard that they exist in this area, and then they have to locate them and bypass them. We then want to also populate our total successes, partial success results, or total failure. So what is going to happen with each of those, right? If they are trying to traverse the jungle and completely fail, does that mean they have to now go through, climb the mountains? Do they arrive at the end, but they're banged up? This is where you get to decide what those outcomes are. And if you have a total success, what benefit do they get? Do they beat the people that are chasing them? And the other people are lessened in number because they took heavy losses trying to keep up with you, right? Whatever that might be, you want to write this down. If it grants one or more victories, you want to populate that in here, and then just any rewards that you might get. There may be some rewards based on this and how you do. Maybe if you get a total success, or maybe just regardless at the end along the way. Keeping in mind that one of the things you can do is you can actually break up a montage with a fight, so you could also make a note of that here as well. The other tabs I've already covered in fairly good detail, the rules and the monsters, so hopefully that is self-explanatory and you know what to expect. So there you have it. This is a beta version of this tool, so please do use it, put it through the paces. If you do and you find a particular thing you really like, or a thing that you wish were different, something else that you'd like me to add functionality-wise, let me know. That would be really helpful, so I can make this tool better and better as I create draw steal or work with others who are creating draw steal encounters. I will keep working on this tool and providing updates to the Patreon. If you are a Patreon member, thank you. This is the kind of work that you make possible with your support. I will keep creating cool tools like this. And again, if you're interested in Daggerheart tools, that could be something cool for me to do to better learn that system as well. So let me know that feedback. And thank you so very much. I'll see you next time.